Welcome to the virtual hike portion of our workshop today. We're going to use this virtual hike, which is going to begin in these woods right back here, as an opportunity to see what is back here that we can collect for our worms and help them build the soil we need for our compost. Now, as I said before, the reason why a lot of these leaves are not turning green is because they are losing chlorophyll because of the shortening of the days. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're dead. It means that they're losing their color and they're losing their green color and being replaced by things like xanthophyll, which turns leaves yellow, and something like carotene, which turns your leaves orange. So a lot of these things don't necessarily mean dead. It just means different. Now, as I said earlier, the way that we build compost is equal parts dead material and equal parts alive material. So when we say green, we don't necessarily mean just green. A lot of other things can be alive. It's just kind of a way that we describe that portion of what we put in our compost, okay? So we're gonna get started on this hike in just a little bit, but to get started, just wanted to show you a couple safety precautions that you can take before you go on your own hike, which you can do at any conservation land or park on the Cape. So get outside, I hope. And before you do, just remember, there are a couple of things to remember. That there are a lot of ticks out there, so make sure you wear bug spray. Make sure you do a tick check afterwards. And another thing you can do is you can just put your pants under your socks like this. I know it looks pretty dorky, but that way the ticks won't get up your pants. Really good. Another thing to remember is that when we're collecting stuff, to watch out for poison ivy. If there's 3, leave it be. That means that if you find 3 leaves, that might be poison ivy. So just be careful about that. Keep an eye out. But we're going to work on the power of observation while we're in our nature hike and what we can look for. Now, as I said, we're going to use this as an opportunity to not just collect things for our compost, but it's also an opportunity to produce a little bit of a nature study. And so we're gonna hit 2 birds with 1 stone, and we're gonna do a little bit of art, and then we're gonna do a little bit of science, because that's the best kind of way to learn everything that nature has to teach us for this particular project. So I'm gonna begin this hike in just a second, but first I wanted to show you what I've already collected, and then once I show that to you, then I can show you how I did that. So first, I found these beautiful oak leaves. Now, as you can see, there's a mixture of that orange, which is the carotene, and there's also a little bit of red. So that has the xanthophyll. Okay. And then there's also still a little bit of green in some of that, right? So that this leaf still has a little bit of chlorophyll, all right? So the point I'm making is that this leaf, just before it fell off, is technically still alive. So this can be considered the alive green material that we need. Now, another example of something I found that you will see everywhere is this Virginia creeper. And you can actually see, if I move my head, that there's right here where my finger is, that's the Virginia creeper. They like to climb up the trees. And right now, you'll see them. They have this really, really glorious, nice red, glowy color. And you see it everywhere right now, okay? Now, this is the beginning of leaves changing color. It's already mid-October, so we can expect that a lot of the leaves are going to be changing from here on. So let's get ready and let's get started. Let's get hiking and collecting stuff for our gardens. All right. So that said, here we go. We can also talk about some of the tools that we need. One thing that you can bring on your hike is a brown bag if you want to collect some loose materials. If you want to just go in your backyard, it would be very useful to have some kind of a wheelbarrow like this that we've been using to collect compost. Or make sure you have some kind of clippers, or if your parents are around, maybe they can hold some kind of a saw if something is just in your backyard and you wanna cut it down to create some green material that's still alive for compost. But just make sure that your parents are around for using that, since it's a sharp tool. Okay? All right, so let's begin our hike. So as you can see, I mentioned before, if the leaves are 3, leave it be. But look how beautiful the poison ivy looks. It turns this really nice yellow. Okay, so that poison ivy is emanating a lot of that xanthophyll that I mentioned. We're going to look for other things that have that for our nature study, but we can just leave alone the poison ivy. And as we go forward, I'm just going to flip this around and show you what we can look for. Now, just go on the floor of the forest, and you can see all of these cherry leaves that are beautiful red. You can just go ahead and pick them up and throw them in your bag. Collect them, and just kind of slowly collect things as you're hiking. And you can enjoy a hike and build your garden at the same time. Now I have this over here, which is an example of the materials that we'll ultimately need to build our worm farm, and I'm going to show that to you in the next portion. But right here, here's the mesh netting that we'll need at the bottom, and you can also use a material like this that's see-through so that you can probably see the worms on the other side, right? Now, if you do this, you just have to make sure you cover this so that there's no light getting into the worm farm, and then you can take that off to see the worms and kind of turn it into a little bit of a science study, okay? So any kind of container like this can be good for your compost, for your worm farm. This material will hold up, but just make sure that it's not made of wood, because that wood might decompose as the worms are breaking down your compost. So we can kind of continue on and just look up. You can see there's more Virginia creeper that's really, really red, kind of hiding behind the other green leaves. And as you hike, you can just kind of anticipate all of these materials coming down and basically forming compost on the ground. Now, if you dig into the soil right here, you'll see that this is basically breaking down. This is essentially nature doing the job of composting for us. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that we are essentially mimicking nature. We are engaging in the process of nature collecting all of these both dead and alive materials to break down into soil and to provide all kinds of nutrients to not just worms, but a lot of other small critters and microscopic organisms that you find in the in nature. And that's what we're trying to produce in our compost, and basically create the healthy soil that we see in these woods that feed all of these trees and bushes that we can then use into our vegetable garden. Okay, so next we are going to talk about how we're going to use all these materials for our nature study. And then once we're done with the nature study, we're going to build our worm farm. All right, that's next.